"You act like a child," she said while secretly dating my divorced neighbor, so I maturely moved out and said nothing. Now she's pregnant, he's gone, and I'm happily married. Hey, viewers! Before we move on to the video, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button if you want to see more stories like this. Thanks. I still remember the exact moment I knew my 2-year relationship was over. I'd just gotten home from work, excited to tell Vanessa about how one of my 4th graders had finally mastered reading comprehension after months of struggling. Instead of sharing my excitement, she rolled her eyes and said, "God, Andrew, you sound like you're 12. Can't you talk about anything serious?" That should have been my first real warning. I teach elementary school, and I love it. There's something pure about helping kids discover the world through books, math problems, and art projects. But Vanessa had started treating my career like a joke. When I'd suggest we play board games or watch a movie together on weekends, she'd give me this look of disgust. "I need a man, not a playmate," she'd say. "You act like a child." The criticism started small. She'd make comments about my clothes being too casual or roll her eyes when I'd laugh at animated movies. She started spending more time at the gym or with girlfriends. Her phone behavior changed too. She'd take it to the bathroom, angle it away from me, smile at texts she wouldn't explain. I'm not stupid. I noticed the new perfume, the expensive clothes that didn't match her marketing salary, the way she'd come home energized from these mysterious outings. But I didn't confront her. I watched. I waited. I gave her the chance to be honest. That chance never came. 3 weeks into May, I saw her getting into Rick's BMW. Rick was our divorced neighbor, mid-40s, always in expensive suits, the kind of guy who talked about wine pairings and name-dropped restaurants I'd never heard of. He was everything I wasn't: pretentious, materialistic, and apparently very interested in my girlfriend. I watched from our kitchen window as he put his hand on her thigh before driving away. The casual intimacy of it told me everything I needed to know. This wasn't their first time together. When she came home that night, I was reading on the couch. "I saw you with Rick," I said without looking up from my book. "So? We're friends. He's actually mature enough to have adult conversations." I closed the book and looked at her. "Friends don't touch each other like that. Maybe if you acted like a grown man instead of a kid, I wouldn't need to find real companionship elsewhere." "Real companionship? You're cheating." I'm exploring what it feels like to be with someone who doesn't think pizza and video games are the height of sophistication. I felt something cold settle in my chest. Not anger, something quieter and more final. "So this is what we're doing now. This is what you forced me to do. I've been trying to make this work, but you refused to grow up." I didn't argue. I didn't beg. I just nodded and went to bed in the guest room. She seemed surprised by my lack of fight, but I was already mentally detached. You can't force someone to value what you offer. The official end came 2 weeks later. She walked in wearing a tennis bracelet I definitely hadn't bought her, and I knew we were done. "Andrew, this isn't working," she said, not even bothering to hide the jewelry. You're just not what I need anymore." "Because I'm not Rick?" "Because you're stuck in adolescence. Rick takes me to wine tastings, art galleries, real restaurants. You want to stay home and play Mario Kart. I thought you liked those things about me. I thought you'd grow up. But you're the same guy who thinks a perfect Saturday is cartoons and cereal. I need someone who challenges me intellectually. And Rick does that. He's been married, divorced, he's lived life. He knows what real problems are. You teach finger painting to 6-year-olds. I almost laughed. I have a master's degree in childhood psychology and have been working with at-risk kids for 3 years. But in her mind, anything involving children was inherently juvenile. So this is over? It has to be. I'm not going to waste my 20s babysitting a man-child. I looked at her standing there in another man's gift, speaking to me like I was the problem, and felt nothing but clarity. I understand. I'll be out by the weekend. The shock on her face was almost comical. I think she expected me to fight for her, to promise to change, to beg her to reconsider. Instead, I went to the bedroom and started packing. By Friday, I was gone. I found a nice one-bedroom apartment across town, took only what was mine, and left my key on the kitchen counter. I didn't badmouth her to our mutual friends. I didn't post cryptic social media messages. I just disappeared from her life as quietly as possible. The next few months were actually liberating. Without someone constantly criticizing my interests, I rediscovered why I loved them. I started volunteering at a youth center, helping kids with homework and reading. I joined a gym, not to impress anyone, but because I enjoyed the routine. I took cooking classes and read books I'd been meaning to get to. Meanwhile, Vanessa was broadcasting her new relationship all over social media. Expensive dinners, weekend trips, designer gifts. She posted about finally being with a real man and shared photos of Rick's BMW, his expensive watch, their wine country getaways. I saw the posts but didn't react. I didn't like them, didn't comment, didn't even feel the urge to. It was like watching a stranger's life unfold. Our mutual friends started mentioning things, though. How Rick seemed controlling. How Vanessa looked stressed despite the Instagram glamour. How he'd interrupt her when she was talking, or how he'd make decisions about their plans without asking her opinion. He's very intense, her friend Sarah told me when we ran into each other at the grocery store. Like, he has opinions about everything she does. I just nodded politely and changed the subject. It wasn't my business anymore. For months after I'd moved out, I got my first text from Vanessa. Just a casual, "How are you?" that I responded to with equal casualness. "Doing well, thanks. Hope you are too." The texts became more frequent. She'd like my old photos on social media, send me articles about things we used to talk about, find excuses to ask about mutual friends. I remained polite but brief. Then came the phone call. "Andrew, I made a mistake. A huge mistake. I'm sorry to hear you're having a hard time. Rick left me. He was nothing like I thought. That's unfortunate. I'm pregnant, Andrew. And I'm all alone." The pregnancy news hit me like a physical blow, but not for the reasons she probably expected. I felt sorry for the child who would grow up with a father who'd abandoned them and a mother who'd thrown away stability for expensive dinners. "I'm sure you'll figure it out. Don't you care?" We were together for 2 years. I cared about the woman I was with. She told me she needed to find someone more mature. I was wrong. You were right all along. I wasn't right or wrong. We just weren't compatible. She hung up on me. A week later, she showed up at my apartment. I could see she was starting to show, and she looked exhausted in a way that expensive clothes couldn't hide. "We need to talk," she said when I opened the door. "No, we don't." "Andrew, please. I'm scared and I'm alone and I made a terrible mistake. I'm sorry you're going through this, but it's not my responsibility. How can you be so heartless? I'm pregnant, and that's Rick's responsibility, not mine. He's gone. He said he wasn't ready for another kid and just disappeared. Then you'll have to figure it out without him." She started crying then, and I felt a flicker of the old sympathy. But I remembered her words about needing a real man, about not wanting to babysit a man-child, about how I wasn't mature enough for her. "I can't do this alone," she whispered. "You made your choice. You chose someone who abandoned you the moment things got difficult. That's not my fault. So you're just going to let me suffer? I'm not letting you do anything. I'm just not fixing your problems anymore." She left angry, calling me heartless and selfish. I closed the door and felt nothing but relief. The final encounter came 6 months later. I was at Murphy's coffee shop with Emma, my new girlfriend. Emma taught kindergarten at my school, and we'd connected over our shared love of working with kids. She was everything Vanessa wasn't. She laughed at my jokes, played video games with me, and understood why I found fulfillment in my career. We were looking at wedding venues on her tablet, having gotten engaged the month before, when I saw a familiar figure at the counter. Vanessa was noticeably pregnant now, maybe 7 months along. She looked tired in a way that went beyond physical exhaustion. When she turned and saw me, her face went through a series of emotions: surprise, hurt, anger, and something that might have been regret. "Andrew? Oh my God, are you engaged?" "Hello, Vanessa. Yes, we are. After everything we had together? You're marrying someone else." Emma started to get up. "I'll give you two some privacy." "That's not necessary." "Vanessa, this is Emma." "Emma, this is Vanessa." Emma smiled politely and shook her hand. Vanessa barely acknowledged her. "Andrew, can we talk? Please. There's nothing to talk about. You're really going to act like what we had meant nothing. What we had was real. But you said it wasn't enough. I was confused. I thought I needed something else. And you found it. How did that work out? Don't be cruel. I'm pregnant and alone. I'm not being cruel. I'm being honest. You made your choice. So you're just going to walk away? Be happy while I'm suffering? I'm not walking away. I already left. You told me to." She looked at Emma, then back at me, and I saw her really see what she'd lost. Emma was beautiful, but more than that, she was kind. She was the type of person who brought homemade cookies to work, who cried at children's movies, who thought my job was important and meaningful. She's just like you, Vanessa said quietly. Yes, she is. And you're happy? Very. Vanessa's face crumpled. I threw away everything good for someone who turned out to be a lie. You threw away what we had because you thought you deserved better. Maybe you did. Maybe you still do. But it won't be with me. Emma reached for my hand under the table and I squeezed it. We had wedding planning to finish, a life to build together, and a future that had nothing to do with the woman standing in front of us. I hope things work out for you, I said, and I meant it in the most distant way possible. Vanessa walked away without another word. Emma and I went back to looking at venues, planning our life with someone who valued what we offered each other. 6 months later, I heard through mutual friends that Vanessa had the baby, a little girl she was raising alone. Rick had never came back, and apparently had moved to another state entirely. She'd had to move back in with her parents and take a lower-paying job with flexible hours. I felt nothing about the news except mild concern for the child. Kids deserve better than parents who abandon them, whether literally like Rick or emotionally like Vanessa had tried to do to me. Emma and I got married in a small ceremony surrounded by people who loved us exactly as we were. During my vows, I promised to never make her feel like she needed to be someone else to earn my love. She promised the same. We honeymooned at Disney World because we're both kids at heart and we're not ashamed of it. We played arcade games, rode roller coasters, and ate Mickey Mouse pancakes for breakfast. It was perfect. Sometimes I think about what Vanessa said, that I acted like a child. She was right in a way. I do approach the world with curiosity and wonder. I do find joy in simple things. I do believe in the importance of play and laughter and not taking yourself too seriously. But I also know the difference between childlike and childish. Childish is abandoning someone when they need you most. Childish is throwing away something real for something shiny. Childish is expecting someone else to fix your mistakes. I never did any of those things. I just refused to pretend that expensive dinners and pretentious conversations were more valuable than genuine connection and shared values. Vanessa wanted a man who would challenge her intellectually. What she got was a man who challenged her financially and emotionally before disappearing entirely. What she had was a man who would have challenged her to be better while accepting her exactly as she was. She chose poorly. I chose to let her live with that choice. And now, watching Emma grade papers at our kitchen table while humming Disney songs, I know I chose correctly too. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. What do you think about this story? Share it in the comments.